and I've never claimed that Israel there was any evidence of Israeli involvement. But Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, has twice declared that Israel had no involvement. Isn't that unusual? When have you ever seen a foreign leader declare that he had no role in a U.S. assassination of a U.S. public figure? Why does so much of the US public look at this with suspicion? Well, I can't fully explain that, but maybe Netanyahu can after having taken responsibility for so many assassinations over the past 2 years and over the years. Actually, yesterday, 30,000 people were out in the streets in Tel Aviv to observe the assassination of former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, the author of the Oslo Accords, who was gunned down by a right-wing disciple of rabbis based in the settlements of Hebron, like Rabbi Dov Lior, whose own acolytes are now in the Israeli government. And Yitzhak Rabin's wife, Leah Rabin, always blamed Netanyahu personally for inciting the murder of her husband. And we just saw Yossi Cohen, the former Mossad director, boast in interviews in the U.S. with U.S. podcasters that not only did Israel infiltrate and tamper with pagers being shipped into Lebanon in order to turn them into explosive devices to injure and maim thousands of Lebanese, many of them Hezbollah reservists, but they have infiltrated and sabotaged communication devices in every country in the world. That's what he said. So there's this suspicion there, along with the reality that Charlie Kirk was changing in the final months of his life. And my three-part series on Charlie Kirk's killing had nothing to do with, or it was not an attempt to determine who killed Charlie Kirk. It was an attempt to use Charlie Kirk's final days to better understand the post-October 7th shift in U.S. politics, where this figure who was basically at the top of an $80 million conservative youth organization that was astroturfed by Zionist billionaires like Robert Schillman, was also having to account for the shift in the conservative youth grassroots on the issue of Israel, and that they were sick of claiming to be America first while President Trump and his team were being owned in broad daylight by the prime minister of a country of 7 million people thousands of miles away. It just didn't make sense for them. And Kirk was being heckled at his public events, grilled about the U.S.-Israel special relationship, and at the same time, he was sick of being bullied by these right-wing Zionist donors who had helped create him. And he couldn't square the circle. He didn't know what to do, and it was driving him crazy. And this is what my three-part investigation at the Gray Zone revealed. But it raises questions about the wrath of the Zionist 1% towards those that it is sponsored, that it claims responsibility for within the Republican Party, who are now moving away, and how they can continue to control them. And this civil war within the right, which is really between the donors and the doers, is continuing to play out with a full-scale attack on Tucker Carlson, attempts to push Charlie Kirk's organization, TPUSA, into preventing Tucker Carlson from speaking, calls for Tucker Carlson to basically be boycotted from all conservative events, and attacks on Candace Owens, who is focused on the more, who killed Charlie Kirk angle, who is also flipped 180 degrees from being pro-Israel to being completely opposed to the the U.S. sponsorship of Israel. And we're seeing the New York mayoral election turn into a proxy for this debate about the Israeli role in U.S. life, with someone from the left who would have been more familiar with the kind of environment of the community church in Boston than TPUSA, someone who was a student activist in college supporting Palestine solidarity, Zoran Mamdani, on the verge of being elected mayor of New York, and the very same forces that Charlie Kirk was privately railing against, who were essentially controlling him in his final days, are now training their fire on Zoran Mamdani and are in a full-scale meltdown. So the changes that we're witnessing in US politics on the left and on the right are dramatic, and we're only going to see them intensify, which means that the efforts of this, I would call it a kind of a fifth column in the US, are going to intensify as well and become increasingly dangerous, frenetic, and potentially violent.